It's a live stream from the road. We're in the RV at Camp Grammy, and I had some things I wanted to talk about. And I'm not quite used to my setup here in the RV. Here we go. All right, so I am drinking out of a little, it's like a camping cup, galvanized screen, and obviously honestly, the only reason I bought it was we were at, it might have been Walmart, it was a camping store, I think it was an RV camping store, and this is one of my favorite colors of green ever in the world. I love this color green, and so I saw it and I was like, I need that color, and so I bought this little mug for no other reason. It has nothing written on it. It's not actually quite big enough to be a coffee mug, but I keep it in the RV for when we're traveling. And when I had coffee earlier this morning, and then this is how much I had left over. So I add a little bit of milk and put the rest of the coffee in here. It's not warm anymore, but it is good. So I'm drinking it. The last bit of coffee for my coffee talk today. And so I had this thought, and this has lots of implications and thoughts. So we're on the road. We're actually in Texas right now. We're not technically on the road. We're in Texas at Stacy's parents' place. It's Camp Grammy week. My boys were out. There's a rodeo earlier today. I went out and cracked my bullwhip for them a few times just to show them how that works. And anyway, all the cousins are out there. There's number 30 is on the way. So there's, I think Corey, our little Corey, was number 29 of the cousins on this side. And so there is a lot of activity, a lot of children, just a lot of stuff going on around here. But in the opening thing that I had there, I had the little bit of a, well, here, let me just show you the image again. So it says speaking truth, and then I have that symbol that says speaking truth is greater than exposing evil. And with that idea, and I remember in that little that one-room Amish schoolhouse, when I saw that they were using this little thing. They were using it on the blackboard. Some of the older classmen were using that shape, and they were talking about something is greater than that, and they were discussing things. And I remember seeing it then and being intrigued by the idea that we could actually take a symbol and say, well, this is greater than that. This is better than that. And as a result, for the rest of my life, I've always tried to, it was actually what helped me the most was in spelling. In maybe second or third grade, we had the spelling word then and than. And I had to learn what made the E versus the A, what was the difference. And so the A meant greater than or less than, and it was a comparative then. And so that stuck with me for a long time. So I always think of that spelling lesson when I see the little shape to show that something is greater than the other. But what do I mean when I say that speaking the truth is greater than exposing evil? Well, part of what was on my mind with this is the simple fact that sometimes we say things that we think of as like, this is really important, and we want to make it where it's the very important thing, and we're telling everyone about it. And so one of the things and so maybe someone hurt you, and I think this starts with children. A lot of times a child, when they're hurt, they want to make sure that everyone knows that they've been hurt. And so they will be like talking. I'm being distracted by the lighting in here. So if you look, so behind me, I'm in the far back of the RV. This purple right here, that's our bed. My guitar's over there. There's the window over here. This curtain here, this thing right here goes between me and the bathroom. And then the rest of the RV is up there. So I have a window on this side right here that is pretty direct on me. I have the little cover over it, and then the window over there, I have the little cover over it just to diffuse the lighting a little bit. But it's so so I have the very bright side of me that's right here on the edge of the frame, like right here, and then over here it's darker going off. Anyway, so from it's not my favorite kind of lighting. So I had set it all up, and for whatever reason in my mind I thought that it was switched, but it's not. So here we are, and I'm in the RV for the first time, working with the lighting and with the audio, and we're in Texas, so the air conditioner is actually running behind me. I don't know if the noise canceling part of the microphone is taking that out, or if you can actually hear it. So that's my distraction. I was looking at over here going, what is going on? Which side should I sit on? So I would kind of like to be this way so that the lighting that's on my face goes to the open side of the camera, but I set it up to where all that stuff that's back here, you can see those things more than just the empty curtain that's or the other side. I'm so turned around. Okay, so back to the topic at hand, and the topic at hand is speaking the truth versus exposing evil. So for instance, when you expose evil in someone else and you say that is wrong and it's evil, you're telling the truth. That is wrong, it is broken, it's evil. So what's the difference between that and speaking the truth? Why would I say that speaking the truth is greater than exposing evil? And this is the part that I want to be careful that I'm not pushing people around wrongly, but there's a thought I've had, and I've seen it in action, and I've seen God at work with this. So for instance, if I come into you and I tell you everything bad that is true about someone else, first of all, that's slander and gossip, and so it's unless you're part of helping them become a better person, then it's a problem, and so that's not actually useful for me to tell you everything bad about someone. Now, this is something that for me, growing up as a child, and even now as an adult, when I'm trying to explain to somebody what happened, what went down, it is often easier for me to say, well, here is what was painful, here is what went wrong, and to actually want to tell you what's going on, and not giving you the full picture. For instance, let's not even try to give it an example right now. Let me keep talking about the idea is that, so if I'm exposing the truth, I made a few notes here earlier. So if I'm speaking the truth, it would include exposing evil when necessary. But when I'm just exposing evil as the number one priority, it does not always include the full truth. So let me explain. So I'm talking about truth, life-changing truth. Facts are not always the same as truth. Facts don't always change your life. Sometimes you don't need all the facts in the world about something. You don't need to know everything about how a butterfly flies to be to actually appreciate a butterfly. Oh, hey, yes, we are actually, this counts as vacation for my wife and children. It's Camp Grammy, so we're back with her side of the family. And I am getting some vacation and visiting with all of my in-laws and everything. I'm having a good time. But I also did bring my work with me, because here in the back of the RV, I have my entire, not my entire, I have my studio, my editing computer is here with me. I should have brought the other camera so I can show you what I'm seeing in this corner. So when we bought the RV, I put the bed that used to be in the middle of the RV, I moved it all the way to one side, and I built a desk over here in this corner so that I could actually bring my actual work with me. And it allows me to have a quiet spot to get away and work when we're out and about. So right now, Stacy's with her family, and the boys are with their cousins. It's awesome. I get to go out and talk with them, have coffee with them. And even later this week, I might again do another coffee talk with my father-in-law, Jim. I did it last year when we were here. We had a chat. So we're discussing having another one, maybe Thursday or Friday, having a chat together and doing a coffee talk at that time. So yes, we're kind of on vacation, but we're also, I still have my work with me. That helps me, keeps me from going completely crazy. I love vacationing in an RV. It just helps. Even working, turning our work trips into RV trips, having the family with us, it's just having the boys know what to do. it's just so helpful. And so I'm very grateful for this RV that we have. So let's see. I have here a John chapter 8, verse 31. Jesus said to those Jews who believed him, "If you abide in me, in my word, you are my disciples indeed. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." They answered him, "We are Abraham's descendants and have never been in bondage to anyone." Which I think is ridiculous, because Abraham's descendants were in bondage in Egypt, they were in bondage in Babylon, they were in bondage to Syria, there was so much bondage going on in these guys, and yet they're like, we're Abraham's descendants, we've never been in bondage to anyone. That's what they say. So they're like, how can you say you will be made free? At that time, they think they're in bondage to Rome. They're subservient to Rome. So the fact that they're like, we've never been in bondage to anyone, to me is just a little ridiculous. But verse 34, Jesus answered them, "Most assuredly I say to you, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. And a slave does not abide in the house forever, but a son abides forever. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed." And then he continues on addressing the fact that about Abraham's seed and all that. But if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. You will know the truth will make you free. Okay. I remember years ago reading one of the Anna Green Gables books, and this is later after their marriage. She's married to Gilbert. He's a doctor now, and their neighbor, and I think it feels like it's their neighbor Leslie. Anyway, she is taking care of her invalid husband, who has a brain issue. And so they get to the point where Dr. Gilbert says, "I think we could actually operate on this guy's brain and bring him back." And the girl is thinking, "Oh no, and what do I do now? I've been taking care of for this guy for years, but like I don't know if the real husband coming back, because he was not necessarily a kind man." And so everyone is going, "I don't know." And Anne is almost mad at her husband, going, "Why did you even bring this up?" And Gilbert he at some point in the account gives this verse. He says, "You'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free." And he just thinks it's better to pursue the truth than to not go there. And so finally they take the guy in, they do the brain surgery. He wakes up, and it's not her husband at all. It's actually her husband's cousin, and they were identical, and they had gone off on a long shipping thing. And so her husband had died, and this man was actually on his way back to tell her that, "Hey, your husband died at this event," or whatever, when he had gotten he was attacked by some men in a seaport somewhere, got hit on the head, and literally had lost his mind for 10, 11, 12 years, however long it was. She was taking care of her husband's cousin, not even her husband. And when she discovered that, she was actually free. He went back to his family, and she was free to marry someone else entirely, which had been the issue. Obviously someone else was kind of in love with her, but she didn't have a husband. She had an invalid that was not even all there. And so Dr. Gilbert Blythe, when he said this verse, that you will know the truth and the truth will make you free, it was such a good application of it. And so I told that story kind of poorly, because I wasn't actually planning on telling it. It just happened when I read it. But the thing about truth is that it sets you free. So when over here, Jesus says in John 14, he says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." So Jesus is the truth. He is life. He is the way. And he actually makes a very exclusive statement here. He says, "No one comes to the Father except through me." And so as a result of these words of Jesus, these are somewhat offensive. Even in people that I have shared with about the truth of Jesus, sometimes this has been offensive when we say that Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. No man comes to the Father except through Christ. So this excludes any religion that does not have Christ at its center. It also excludes any religion that says, well, you have to follow certain rules in order to come into the kingdom, because the way into the kingdom is Christ. And so there's something that happens in our lives when we are thinking that we have to figure out how to get to heaven. When we have to do enough good work to get to heaven, it becomes a heavy thing to carry. And so for most believers, there is a time in their life where they suddenly understand, oh, the fact that Christ loved us, and specifically he loved me, so in you, he loved you, the fact that Christ loved us enough that he was willing to come to earth, become a man, walk among us, live all that time here, and then to end up dying for us on the cross, and that his blood was the perfect sacrifice of the Lamb, fulfilling the requirement of the law, and therefore I am suddenly free in Christ. It's not my performance that is what Jesus isn't. God isn't up in heaven going, okay, well, he did this much today, oh, this much tomorrow, we're getting closer. Oh, now he did some things that took off some points. So he's not doing that. He just literally looks at us and says, they have looked into Jesus. Jesus' blood covers them. They are my child, and we will be together in heaven one day. And so this is a very freeing thing for most believers. They have that time in their life when they can point back to this moment and say, it's not my works, it's not my performance, it's not my knowledge, it's not my abilities or gifts or calling. It's the fact that Christ himself loves me, and therefore when he died for me, he was setting me free. And so I know the Son, and therefore I shall be made free. I am free. Whoever knows the Son is free indeed. And so that's liberating truth. That is life-giving truth. And so that's different than just facts. Facts are not always life-giving. They might be true, but they're not capital T truth. And so what we want is the capital T truth, the truth that sets you free. That's what I'm looking for. And so when I think about, there's been different times in my life where I have run across, I remember probably at 10 or 11, maybe 12 years ago, I ran across a situation where there were several well-known people that were having a real, an actual falling out. So I say well-known, like in certain circles I was in, and I was very confused because I didn't know what was going on. So I remember doing a Google search and saying, what's going on between so-and-so and so-and-so, and then up pops someone's blog, and they have outlined the entire thing from the most petty parts of it, every part of this public, these two public figures, their dispute, what's going on. And it's just like a blow by blow account of what's going on in these people's lives. And I remember reading through it all, clicking to the next article, clicking to the next article. They had written it over a series of months. What's happening now? What's happening now? And I remember getting to the end of the article and realizing that most everything I had read was probably true. But right now, at this moment, having read all of that, like it was not empowering. I was not helped in my own faith. It was a little bit like it wasn't the best thing for me. And so I realized that just because I have facts doesn't necessarily mean that I have that it's truly helping me, that the truth is truly setting me free the entire time. Okay, so we will know the truth will set us free. That's the part that's really important to grasp hold of. So this is where when I say speaking truth is better than or greater than exposing evil. So for instance, you know what I think is happening actually? I think I'm losing signal when the air conditioner out here kicks in. It seems to be affecting my computer's ability to be online. That's funny. Like it's still there, but I lose bandwidth at the time when so I don't know if it's interrupting you guys or not, but like it seems to be slowing me down when it's headed out. So that's funny. Okay. So I didn't want to stay here forever and talk about this because it's a quick thought, and then I wanted to leave it at that. So when I read those articles, what I discovered is not only was this lady writing about this, but she also had other people that she was exposing. And then I discovered another ministry in another state at the time that was their whole ministry. Everything they did was to expose people. And so they would go around and look for anyone who was in ministry, anyone who was doing anything, and find out what was going on in their life. Is there any dirt that needs to be exposed? And they would expose this dirt. And they thought that we're led by God to do this. And as I remember reading through one of their things, and I'd get to the end of it and think, wow, I don't feel good. I don't feel liberated. I don't feel free. I feel heavy. And that's not cool, that I know all of this bad stuff about people. And so I started realizing that if I think my ministry is to expose evil, there is always brokenness in the world. There's always some new, did you know? And it becomes gossip and slander and not helpful for the kingdom. And so I can tell you the truth all day long, just tell you true facts about a church or a people. And so this was something I remember when we were making the Amish DVD, the Amish movies. I didn't want to just, did you know, and tell all the dirt about the Amish, because there's probably enough there to keep me busy for quite some time. I wanted to also talk about what things are good about the Amish. But I also, and what I really wanted to do was to, while talking about the Amish, actually talk about Jesus and talk about how God himself can rescue us and help us. And so there's an important ingredient here. When I'm speaking the truth, it may and sometimes needs to include exposing evil. But often when people are just exposing evil, they may forget to bring in the balancing truth. For instance, when someone has hurt me, maybe in a deep way broken trust with me, defiled me, whatever. There's so much with the actual abuse that can happen. There's so much real damaging that someone else can do. So I can tell everyone, this is what happened, this is what they did. And it's true, but it's not really setting me free or helping me until you explain how this is what broke me, and here is how Christ the Redeemer came into the situation and brought healing, and what he has done for me, he can do for you. And so when I share that, that's part of it. When I then introduce truth, the way, the truth, and the life, that becomes powerful. Now I'm actually able to not only tell you the facts that may be true, but not necessarily life-changing, but then I'm able to go from those facts into this is life-changing truth. And so it is better for us to start preaching about Jesus, to explain Jesus is able to help us forgive our worst enemy. Jesus is able to not only change us, but he can actually change our worst enemies. Jesus can rescue us from the brokenness of the world. And so when we proclaim the truth of who Jesus is, and that in him there is a way to move forward, then we're actually, in a really neat way, bringing light into a dark place, because we're talking about Jesus, and the works of darkness can be exposed without us ever having to point and say, this is wrong, or this is... We can just say, this is truth, here's the light, this is the way, this is who Christ is. And someone can be standing there listening going, if that's truth, and that's what that looks like, then what's happening over here is not truth. I must be walking in darkness. There's something wrong here. And evil can be exposed purely by preaching truth. But so someone can come to Christ and understand that the things that they are doing are wrong and they need to stop doing them if I'm just preaching Christ. However, if I come to them and I only tell them what you're doing is wrong, what you're doing is wrong, what you're doing is wrong, they may never come to Christ. They may only feel exposed and hurt and attacked by me. And so it is better to preach Christ and to preach the truth of who Christ is and allow the Holy Spirit to do his part, where the people that are walking in darkness go, wait a minute, that's Christ. I don't have that. I don't have the fruit of the Spirit in my life. I don't have freedom. My conscience is guilty. I don't have any of that. And yet you're telling me Jesus can do all this in my life? Well, I need to come and submit to Jesus, because I need to have a clear conscience. And so we come, so it could be a funny starting point, but it's a necessary starting point. So I come to Christ and my sins are exposed. But if I instead show up and instead of telling anything about Jesus, just saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, you've got a dirty conscience, everyone's going, yeah, I know, I'm broken, it's bad. And they may never come to Jesus. All they know is, I came and pointed out all the painful things in their life. And so they might hate me, they might hurt me, they might take offense against me, they might try to get rid of me, they might try to silence me. And so in this case, I remember a street preacher that I used to hear down in San Antonio, and he would just get up there in front of the Alamo, and he would tell you he would say, men, basically, the adultery is sin, and he would preach against adultery. Then he'd preach against the gay lesbian lifestyle. Then he'd preach against the big corporation churches and preach against them. And he would just go, and then he'd preach against women pastors, and he would just preach. And so people would take offense at him for the things he was saying, and he'd feel persecuted for Christ. But he didn't ever preach Jesus. He just preached all the things that were wrong. And one time Stacy and I took him aside because we were doing something else and we needed him to be quiet. So we started chatting with him and asking him questions. And the reality was, when you asked him about his testimony, when you asked him what had happened in his life, Jesus never came up. And yet he thought he was serving God and serving the church by the things he was doing. There was an organization that helped support him, but it wasn't about Jesus. But he was telling all these other things that were wrong, and he was setting himself up as a Christian, but it was really odd when I realized that he doesn't have the truth. He's not preaching the truth. So exposing evil does not always present the truth. But presenting the truth has the power to expose evil, even without us having to say, that's evil, that's evil, that's evil, that's evil. I'm not saying you don't. There are times in your life when you might have to say, that is wrong. Stop it. Might be a time when you have to say that. There might be a time when you show up somewhere, you're like, why are we letting this happen? This is wrong. That's contrary to the Word of God. You might have to say that sometimes. But in every place and in every time, if you speak about Jesus and you talk about the power of God and you say that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and that no one can come to the Father but by Him, that is a positive statement of truth that brings into highlight the fact that if anyone else is saying, hey, you can come to the Father through me, like, actually, Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. So those are my thoughts. I'm just thinking in terms of you might spend a lot of time trying to expose darkness, but if you don't also preach truth, then lives may feel different, somewhat changed, but true healing can't happen until we come to the light, until we come to Christ. So we have to come all the way to truth. In fact, if someone around us starts speaking true things, true facts, and they're gossiping and the bad intents of the heart and slander and other things are happening, we often label them as toxic. And they're like, well, I'm just telling you what's true. And we're like, yeah, but you're toxic. I don't like it. That's just our culture right now. But when someone starts sharing truth in a calm, direct way, we're able to look into ourselves and say, oh, I want that. And it becomes life-giving. And it sets us free. So you will know the truth and it will set you free. If you will speak the truth of Christ, I think others will also be set free. But if you become fixated with thinking that it is our responsibility as a believer to go find every possible variation of darkness and find it out and say, this is wrong, people on the outside will be listening going, all that those believers ever do, all those Christians ever do, is say what they're against. So let's not just say what we're against, let's explain what we're for. We're about Jesus. Jesus is the Son of God who was made flesh. He came into the world. He was the light of the world. Men love darkness rather than light, but he still stayed faithful to the end. He served God by serving other people. He fulfilled prophecy. He was dead, buried, and rose again the third day. Ah, my battery's blinking. I'm almost done. My battery, he rose again. He's sitting at the right hand of God the Father, and there's coming a day when all of us will stand before Christ. And this is the sort of truth that you can know, and it will set you free. So blessings. Thank you guys for joining in. Hopefully later this week I'll be back with my father-in-law, and we'll talk some more. But I'm really grateful for the truth of Jesus, that he can set us free. So press into Jesus. Don't just let the facts of this world depress you, but let the truth of Christ really strengthen you and give you the journey, the life that you need for the rest of your life. Blessings. See you next time.